Hey, it's Chris. What are we talking about today? We're talking why you should not buy any games, because you don't need any more games. But this time especially, we're talking why you don't need any of the new games coming out at retail in freaking November, right? And there's some big names. You don't need them. As always, I mean, you listen to me talk about them, and you go, Chris, I'm okay with that. Chris, your criticisms are completely unfounded. Chris, you're a complete and utter shill. Chris, you're an idiot. And you can buy them anyway. That being said, big names. Let's go. That's what you paid for. So, Dune Imperium Uprising, Direwolf is putting this out. You can pre-order it. You can get 2 promos from their website. 2 whole promos. Holy crap, folks. That's almost like you're never going to use them whatsoever. Unless you're one of those Dune hardcore online people. Unless you played in the Mr. Beast Invitational. Direwolf invited the top Dune Imperium players from all over the world to play this pre-release and to drum up some hype and marketing. And Mr. Beast actually won it. He won it against the best. So it's not just like a gimmick, like he actually likes board games. And so that's pretty freaking amazing for a starter. But do you need it? No! It's not an expansion. It's not a reboot, as they say. It's a sequel. What the deuce is a sequel versus a reboot anyway, right? It's like The Last of Us getting a remaster versus a re-edition versus a whatever, right? If you played through it and you know what you're getting into, it's a little bit more complex. Dice Tower already had the review out like a month before you can even get your game at retail. So, you know, the marketing for this is deep. They're digging that hole deep for your grave and wallet to fall into. Do you need it? No. Is it going to be compatible with the expansions previously? Yes? Question mark, question mark, question mark? That is the thing that boggles my mind, right? Because you know there's going to be another expansion along with it, right? This is the Dune Imperium Uprising expansion. Not to mention all of the upgrades, the deluxifications. Imagine if a bunch of other companies did that at retail for Lords of Waterdeep, for Arcane Wonders and Foundations of Rome. Oh, that's right, they did that. And what does that do to price point? It jacks it the F up. And it becomes a lifestyle game then. Because you're blinging it out. And again, like, there are channels just freaking devoted to this that are, 3-4 times my size. Just Dune Imperium. So it has a cult following. And do you really need it, though, from a gameplay standpoint? Well, this one, spices, sandworms, and, for all of you that need a 6-player game of this to last you, 3 hours in your tabletop, that's awesome. For the rest of us that can barely muster 4, though, nah, not really interested. Pass. 9 new leaders are cool, right? Have you played it that much? Hardcores have. Regular schmoes like me, though? Probably not. Is it going to end up in my collection? Probably. Do you need a completionist promo factor with this as well? No, you don't. Don't FOMO the promo, folks. Speaking of FOMO, it's a nice segue here. Marvel Zombicide, Marvel forking Zombicide from CMON is going to retail this month, folks. Arguably, as we eagerly anticipate the DC version of Zombicide, the Marvel one has been by far and away the biggest. Is it going to hold up at retail? Absolutely. Zombicide is one of the biggest games at retail, just like Dune Imperium. Do you need this version? Is this iteration actually going to be any different if you already have 1 or 2 other Zombicides? No, the answer is no. And the other side of this that goes along with it is, screw you, Galactus. Screw you, right? Such a FOMO grab. And at least 4 of the expansions at the time of me filming this are going to be available at retail. You have Hydra Resurrection, Clash of the Sinister Six, Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Fantastic Four. Do you need any of them? No! There's too much content. The expansions are going to be unbalanced. The base game, if you don't have the Kickstarter exclusives, is maybe going to be passable if you want it. It's beer and pretzels. It's not going to offer you anything new from a Zombicide. You're going to get sucked in like I did from the IP alone, right? Yeah, you are. But if you did get sucked into the IP, well, you can use it to justify that you don't get sucked into the DC license. Now, granted, there's going to be some slight twist with DC, just like they did with the Marvel, but you don't even get to experience the great stuff, right? They give you these awesome powers of the characters that you're slowly building up, trashing zombie mobs all over the place left and right, but you don't ever get to use them because the game will end before you're actually going to capitalize on it. It's going to be a slog. It's going to be a grind. It's not gone away from that standpoint. There's going to be too many characters for you to play them all through. You're never going to find one that's going to fill the gaping hole in your gaming needs heart. And you're going to be searching grass is greener for that expansion FOMO content that you're hoping is going to fill it. And it won't, because you're also going to pay twice what people did on the crowdfunding because of supply and demand, folks. Because if there's one thing we say every time, you don't buy CMON at retail, folks. You buy them on crowdfunding. I hate to say it, but that's where you get the best price. It's where you FOMO, and it's where you get the most content. Retail, you're going to miss out on a little bit. And for all you promo junkies, this is basically the cream of the crop from the promo exclusivity side of things. They do it better than anybody else, still to this day. Which is why, you don't pick up at retail, you pick up somebody's pledge when they're just trying to flip it for the price that they paid. Because inevitably, if you're patient enough, you do that. Again, not buy it from retail. Now, speaking of big names, though, we gotta just stay with this theme here. Apiary, Stonemaier's latest, is coming to us, right? They are coming to us at retail. Okay. 3X Space Bees in space. 30 different factions of bees that you can maneuver, outmuster, battle, take over, explore. It's got cool art. It's got the Stonemaier Heart Machine marketing engine behind it. Is it going to be the Stonemaier game that changes your mind on them? Very divisive company. I will have a review shortly out of Expeditions later this month. I don't know if this is the one that's going to change your mind. It's asymmetric worker placement factions in space with bees as the theme. If bees don't do it for you, if space doesn't do it for you, neither of these things are going to change your mind. This is a worker placement with a lot of window dressing. People like it. No one is going to say, at this point, from what I've heard, based just off rumor online, I do not have a copy, I have not played, full disclaimer, that this is going to be in your Game of the Year category, right? But yet, if you went off the hype machine, the drumming up of the convention hype, the great job that Jamie does of building these things up prior to release with the Stonemaier champions and the early and the big name reviewers, I mean, everything every time just, hits like a hammer, doesn't it? And that is freaking impressive. Same thing with Expeditions. I have not seen them put out two bam, back to back, especially this short order, ever, right? We're talking Wingspan and Scythe, and those weren't anywhere near as close together as these two. Everything else since then, really hasn't. And these two have really got that drum beating again. But for you, go trade for it. Go trade for it. That's how I ended up with Expeditions before Expeditions got to retail. Because again, somebody's going to be getting rid of it because somebody else, don't be that somebody else did it. Sight unseen, Stonemaier champions get all their games, right? Just like the Chip Theories, just like the Garphils. You get all of them. I guarantee you're not going to like every single one that a company puts out. You can at least make an argument with Chip Theory, they have a type. You can make at least an argument with Garphill, they have a type. Stonemaier? They're all over the place, like Roxley. And I say that as a great thing. But if they're all over the place then, if you're like me, you don't like everything. No, let me rephrase that. You don't explicitly love everything. You may like everything, but you don't love everything. And if you don't love it, you don't buy it because it doesn't get played over the rest of this stuff. Right? Right. So what else is out there? Well, War of the Ring, Ares Games. This was one of my top games of 2022. War of the Ring, the card game, sit up there on the shelf, right? Fantastic. Love it. Asymmetric, shadow versus light. Do your decks. All this game needs is a little bit more to fluff out some of those decks, sub some cards in, maybe make the decks a little bit more, give it one tiny more mechanic, and then they announce, boom, Against the Shadow expansion, and people were like, mic drop, there you go. And then they were like, oh, by the way, it's adding this sort of weird cooperative mode, but it's also mainly allowing you to play solo. Solo? Come on! You're marketing yourself as this great asymmetric two-player game in the lines of its predecessor by the same name. I don't see you putting out in Automa a solo version of War of the Ring 2nd Edition. So why are you trying to pigeonhole this card game into that? Now, obviously, this game is much more adaptable and amendable to that in the first place, right? And, I'm not going to discount all of the people that wanted a solo version for it. But this game is going to shine head to head. An AI system is not going to give the dynamic experience that this game gives you as its core. It's not. And therein lies the fault of it in that sense. For me, I just want more freaking good content. I don't want to be, as I've said on several crowdfunding videos, if you heard me, you can't do cooperative, competitive, and solo all freaking good. You can't. You could probably name the games that do them all amazing. I'm not talking about good. I'm not talking again about pretty good. I'm not talking about, yeah, that's good. No, I'm talking about amazing. Name to me on more than one hand the games that do that amazingly. You can't. You can't. I dare you. Somebody's going to do it in the comment section. They're going to come up with 10 games out of the blue and just blow me out of the water, make me look like an idiot. But that's what I'm saying. And this game is great as a head-to-head competitive. You don't need to appease everybody. And that's my fear with this expansion. This expansion is trying to appeal to a broader market. But if you don't put out an amazing version of this, guess what it's going to do? It's going to turn people off to the game in the first place. Right? Because guess what people do already with Solo and Lord of the Rings? FFG. Lord of the Rings LCG. So you're competing against that already. Why would you compete against that? You have a completely separate market of the head-to-head asymmetric duelers of me, people like me. And now you're trying to dip into that, but your product isn't going to be as good. And it just can't compete with that's out there. Customization, content, complexity, all of that stuff. I just can't help but say pass, right? But let's stay with the asymmetric duelers right here, right? Let's go to Senjutsu. Battle for Japan, Stone Sword Games. Crowdfunding extraordinaire. Taking your character, doing a BattleCon Yomi Exceed style on a 3D or, XY grid, as opposed to the linear back and forth, with some asymmetry there and a cool, Eastern theme. It killed it on crowdfunding. It is finally coming to backers right now. I'm one of those people, right? Don't pick this up at retail. Don't. This is a huge unknown. You want a 2-player asymmetric dueler without that element? Go for one of the ones that has tried and true, tested and reviewed out there already. They sent it to a few other reviewers to drum up some hype business. But again, I don't see it making waves right now. No one knows if this is going to stand the test of time. No one knows if it's going to be a way too random placement of swinging and missing all the time. That was the concern about when the crowdfunding went in the first place. That's the big question mark on this XY grid that you've got now, right? Exceed. I'm going to run into you because all I can do is move forward and backwards. Only a very limited range. Here, you're moving all over the place. Can you do that? Again, are you going to find, just like with Mythic Mischief, which got replaced, mind you, it's the loop behind me now. I had to change things up occasionally. Are you going to find the character that you want, right? That was my big FOMO. I didn't get all the characters. I said, nope, can't FOMO, not getting all these. Chances are I'm not even going to like half the ones I have in the first place. With any of these asymmetric games, you're going to end up with ones that you're going, oh, geez, I don't even know if I like this one. Oh, I do not like this one whatsoever, right? And this is going to be truer than all of those. And you don't even know if it's going to be good in the first place. At least with Exceed or BattleCon, right? I can go, I know I love this system. I know I will find a couple of these in whatever box that I buy that are going to be suited to my needs. In this, you don't even know if the gameplay content is going to be long-lasting. Comparatively, is it going to stand the test of time? Because there was another one of these in the last, year and a half that had sort of a big name vibe that came on through crowdfunding, and then a couple big name channels kind of didn't like it, and it kind of went, woo! And is this going to be very similar to that? I don't know. You want to try something out with at least a little bit more, knowledge about? Go check out Ivion as well. That at least has the third dimension of the XY in there as well that you can do. But this one, again, as a game that didn't need miniatures, could have done total standees, price point a little too high in the first place. You can pass on it. Again, get somebody else's copy, because somebody's going to hate this game. Somebody's going to get this game and go, oh man, I thought the aesthetic was awesome. Gameplay is horrible for me, right? Street Fighter, the miniature game, anybody? It's going to be the same vibe as that. You can go find it on the secondary market if you're patient. Don't buy it at retail, though. Now, let's go somewhere else. I got a copy of this sitting right here next to me. Fit to print. AEG, flat out. This is a game that you look at and you go, Chris, that seems like a really cool theme. Animals, printing press, newspapers, create your own newspapers. Wow. Okay, let's push pause on this one right here. Because do you like real-time games? Now people are going to argue in the comment section. This isn't solely a real-time game, Chris. You can play it turn-based. You can. No, that's included because they didn't want to turn people off, that, the automatic people that say real-time, not interested. They don't even care about what it is or how it does it or anything like that, right? So I'm a real-time junkie, right? Sounds really weird when it came out of my mouth there. But essentially, I love me some Bullet. Bullet is a top 5 game for me all time, folks. All you do is jump a bunch of tiles into the center of the board, in the center of the table, and then flip them all face down, and then flip them face up one by one until you decide that you're done or the timer runs out. And then you kind of have to guess and see how much you've gotten that's either too big or too small for the area. And there's not really any way of knowing or mitigating or keeping track unless you're trying to do mental math. That's even a little bit too much for me as basically a math minor in college to handle from that aspect of things in the cubed or rectangular area that you have. The point conditions are kind of all over the place, and it's not going to be what you want necessarily unless you want a very chaotic neutral-esque, to go to the D&D theme, tile layer. And tile laying often is a very scientific process for those of us that enjoy it. And if you like the real time, the benefit of real time is just forcing up those decisions that you can make, just making them go faster, but still having control. And this feels like it's a blend too much of neither of those. And so, you know what? The great thing about these games is that you don't really miss a whole lot out at the retail side of things. But this one in general, you really have to love doing it the way it is. It just isn't going to fit you otherwise. So, honestly, I swear I didn't mean to do that right there. That pun. That was a horrible pun. If I'm going to make a pun, it's going to be a lot more daddy, if you will. That also didn't sound right coming out of my mouth. Next game, before I get myself in trouble. Nucleum. Right? Another mid-heavy Euro game that is post-Gen Con release now. Sort of in between conventions before the end of the year. It got some hype for a little bit. And it's the latest from Board and Dice, right? Teotihuacan, Tekhenu, Tiletum. Chris, I'm going to mispronounce that one. I'm going to stop doing that. The magic one. The ultimate formula. I stopped there. I'm going to also not pronounce the TAWANTINSUYU one either, because I would screw that up. As well as TAHANNUSI. I'm not going to screw those up. I'm just going to let you laugh at me in the comment section for spelling them out instead, right? Now, a few of those you're going to recognize. Did you also know they did Terracotta Army? Anyway. But the T's, they're veering from that. And none of those are ill thought of games, if you will, right? Tiletum, you can make the argument, is probably their biggest hit since Teotihuacan. And that's a 4-year spread there from 2018 to 2022. Is this one doing something new? Reviews on it are necessarily not that it's doing a whole lot new, just maybe a little bit heavier as well. I mean, the biggest thing I always wonder about with this is, right, like with any of these heavy Euros of those ilks, 60 plus Euros was what the pre-order was for some people, right? Non-deluxified retail, 60 plus Euros plus shipping. Is this one going to stand the test of time? I see a lot of hype behind these mid-weight, not quite Lacerda heavy worker placement or Euro games lately, you know, especially around the time of Essen, plus or minus, but a few other times a year. And the thing that I can never tell is which one of these is actually going to stand the test of time, right? Because inevitably, the comparisons get made a few months later, like, okay, well, this one versus this one versus this one versus Barrage versus Brass versus Power Grid, I don't know, whatever else you want to throw in there, right? And the question is, what is this one doing significantly better, different, or uniquely? And that's the first question you have to ask yourself with something like this. Because, you know, at least with those others, like, I can say Senjutsu is doing stuff differently than Battlecon and Yomi and Exceed, right? They've got a different thing. They're more like Evian. So I can at least compare it there a little bit. I don't know with this one. Board Game Geek skews heavy in favor of these niche games. Like, any of these niche games with hotness behind them, unless they are just complete and utter fail, the Board Game Geek rankings are worthless. Because if you didn't know before, Board Game Geek skews heavy, right? The heavy games, you only have the heavy gamers playing. And they are obviously, you know, biasly going to rate overall higher because that's the type of game they prefer. Whereas something like Ticket to Ride, the heavy gamers are going to play and going to complain about it and then going to rate it low. You're going to have more of that spread there because of those games just being more accessible and more people in general playing them. And so the rating is going to be lower overall. So this niche within a niche, bias within a bias situation is going to inflate things more than even crowdfunding does on Board Game Geek. So that's why this game, which has literally been released within like the last, I don't know, really shortly, is already like 2,000th. 2,000th! Is it that good? I don't know. Is it going to stand up a year from now? No, this is on the short list of things, S and Ys, that you go, well, how do I feel about things a year from now? Put it on your trade list. As always with this stuff, get it on trade. You know, get rid of something you're not playing to get it. Or, what would you give up to get it, right? That's always the better test, right? Would you give up Teotihuacan to get this one? Would you? Would you? You know, you gotta give something up good to get something good sometimes. I'm not saying it has to be good for you, but it has to be something worthwhile. You're not gonna get 4 copies of Munchkin and a Catan to get this, right? If you are, well, you know, let me know who you're trading to and I'll try and trade with them as well. But that's what you got to remember with this one. The other one that's on my radar, Patterns, the Mandala game. This is by the creator of Mandala. I don't even know where it is. It's somewhere over here, right up there in my shelf. Great, absolutely fantastic game. Mandala, if you're not familiar with it, right? You have mandalas in the middle, 3 piles, essentially. And you have a pile, 7 colors or so, and you can only have 1 pile of them out on a time, either your opponent's side or in the middle or on your side. And how you do that, you know, and how you manage that back and forth is just clever. It's unique. This is a spin-off. This is a sequel, speaking of things earlier, Dune Uprising, not necessarily a reboot. And it's a really well thought of game. It is probably one of my favorite 2-player games to play with my wife that we can get out, we can play quick, and we can even play 2 or 3 times without, you know, breaking a sweat. And feeling good about it because there's enough randomness, there's enough mitigation, there's enough control that it appeases both of our taste buds, if you will. But this one? This is screaming to me, just like with Dune Imperium, right? Like either or. Either or. And if you're really doing a sequel, I mean, Nemesis Lockdown, anybody? Right? Which one do you prefer? I don't need things to be that much more complex. You've got a good thing. Can you make me want two good things, though? There is too much of a good thing. And there's been practically no details about it whatsoever, right? So this is one that you're going to see the Dice Tower review in like a month or so, the next month. Or people like me that are just going to buy a retail, get the free shipping thing and roll the dice, metaphorically speaking, and see whether or not it shakes out and the comparisons are going to go there. Otherwise, it's a total crapshoot right now. With all the other ones, even something like the Sky Team that just got released as well, which at least has more information, more pedigree, or at least, more reviews to let you know what you're getting into. There's no reason to pre-order this. There's no reason to get it. I say that as someone who would very happily, potentially, be interested in it. But I go, I don't see a reason to get it. It's going to $20 to $30 probably at least. Someone's not going to like it, and I'll pick it up for 10 plus shipping. Oh, Chris, you saved $15. Yeah, I saved $15. That $15 pays for my crowdfunding shipping on the other stuff that I'm backing right now, right? Robbing Peter to pay Paul, but in a different way in that sense. Two last ones here, bearing the lead here at the very end. Ark Nova, Marine Worlds, expansion content from Capstone. Did you even get the map pack? Did you use the map pack? Do you even remember this game is out? The number one game for everybody from last year that nobody plays again or remembers, right? Because that's the hype and the hotness. How many times have you played it since it became your number one game, best game of all time, of the month, of the week, of the year, of the decade, for you? Or for all of the YouTubers you follow? I don't know. It's a fine game. It's better than Earth. I know, hot take right there. But it doesn't solve the main criticism that people say is the massive deck. It just gives you more of a massive deck. But don't worry, now you can do it with animals from the water. I guess. Awesome. I mean, it does give you a new university to grab. It gives you a slight twist on those generic action cards with no asymmetry. So that's kind of cool. But you're not going to play this, 2.5 hour Tableau engine building style game with a cool theme. You don't even remember what 2 years ago your number one game was. So why would you buy an expansion for a game that's not going to make it any shorter? What people wanted, what this should have been. I know this is me going to the designer hat. I'm totally wrong anytime I go into this situation. What it should have been was something like Prelude for Terraforming Mars, right? Streamline it a little bit, zoom it a little bit, customize a little bit more. I mean, as someone who has a copy of Ark Nova and, will eventually probably pick up Marine Worlds at some point down the line. Last up, Kids Table Board Games, Diced Veggies. Their latest smasher over on retail, straight to retail. It's a kid's game. Don't be fooled. Little Everdell, My Little Scythe. Those are flash in the pans. Flash in the pans. It's kids style. The ratings are going to be a little inflated for those that have kids or want kids in the future and want them to play with it, in that sense. You're not one of those people, right? Like 10 years from now, my kids are going to play Ark Nova with me, right? Don't be one of those people. I'm one of those people. But is it going to be, that good for you? Sort of a literal I cut and choose style of games where you chop off the dice and then use them to create recipes? Well, you don't have enough recipes. Is it going to have that replayability factor? Is it going to be the lasting test of time in a set collection Tableau builder? No, it's not for you. It's not. You want depth and incredible replayability. You don't want a game that you're only going to play or be able to play a dozen times before it gets old. Just kidding. You don't play any of your games a dozen times. Who am I joking? Again, me in the mirror. Not you. Me. So there you go. Those are your retail picks to absolutely not buy this month whatsoever. As always, tell me how wrong I am in the comment section and why you're going to pick it up and spend anyway. There you go. Stay classy. Have a great freaking day. Hopefully, saved you a bit of money there too.